So, people ask me a lot, how in the heck do you get that to work in Pro Tools so you're actually putting it on the mix? Like, this is already recorded stuff. How in the world can you use those? And that was confusing for me at first, too, when I first started in this stuff. I was like, how in the world can you do that? You know, how it doesn't make sense. It's a very simple concept without the patch bay. Let's leave the patch bay out of this for a minute. But here's my interface here. It's the Symphony IO. By the way, if you send your music here, this thing will absolutely blow your mind when you get your mix back because it sounds that good. It sounds great. There's not a lot of converters that I can say, you know, I'll go up to an M-Box, I'm like, yay, you know, I'll go up to a Profire, yay, I'll go up to, you know, another studio with 003, yay. I'll go to a studio with a Symphony IO and it blows my mind compared. You know, Lucid, Lavery, Lynx, Mytek, Benchmark, Prism. I mean, I can keep going on and on, but those converters are on like a different level, and you start getting in that ballpark. That's a professional conversion system. Pretty much, aka an interface. Interfaces have converters in them. Some converters are just standalone converters where you have to interface them with something else. So that's what they mean when they're talking about an interface. A lot of interfaces you buy at home are standalone interfaces that have preamps built in. They have, you know, a volume control on them. They got all kinds of cool stuff on them, and they're pretty much a one-stop shop. And what makes it an interface is it has a way to interface with your computer. That's what they consider the word interface as. Hey, we can interface with the computer. When you take away and just make it an ADD, a converter, usually you're using, like with the Rosettas, these are ADAT. So I needed an interface inside my computer or another PCI card from like the Symphony PCI card to work with it. But you can use it as a PCI, like a PCI card by RME. It's ADAT optical. You can run the outputs to the inputs of that card, back out of that card to the inputs of this. You're creating an output and input channel from that RME card. Don't let that confuse you. The Rosetta 800 has 8 outputs, 8 inputs. The Symphony IO has 8 outputs, 8 inputs. So what happens here is my outputs, look at this gear up here, and each one of these pieces of gear has outputs and inputs on the back. If you ever looked at a piece of equipment, line out, line in, okay? Here's the thing. When you run the output of your interface, like let's say channels 3 and 4, let's say 1 and 2 are going to my monitors. People are like, why do I got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? And some guy goes, oh, you can do 5.1. Yes, you can. He's absolutely correct. But you can also create hardware inserts if you do not have an analog console. Let me explain that. You can go directly out of your interface. It's the cleanest way to do it, by the way. Because if you use the analog console, you're adding the analog sound. But let's just put it this way. If you have like a solid state console, it's probably highly beneficial to do it that way. Or a Neve console. But those are a few $100 and you know, that's some serious mixes. But the same results can come from today's day and age with the right converters. And I'm going to give you this. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 outputs. Let's say we want to hook up this EQ here. So we got the Bax EQ. It's a 2-channel. Let's just use this as an example. Let's say I hook that up. Outputs 3 and 4 of my interface. I hook it up into this thing. So I got my outs going into this thing. Now, the outputs of this Bax EQ, I'm going to run right back down into 3 and 4 on the Symphony IO. So you're making a loop with the piece of equipment. So just remember that. You want the signal from Pro Tools when you go, and I'll show you where you got to go to make this happen. But when you go out 3 and 4, it'll go into this. So it's sending its information from the computer, the volume, it's sending that signal into this EQ. It's going back out of this EQ, coming back into Pro Tools. So it has to go out, has to come back in. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about hooking up hardware to your Pro Tools session. You do need multiple outputs. If you have an interface that does not have multiple outputs, there might be a way. Just read the manual and see if you can create a hardware insert with your piece of equipment. That's how you do it. So take that principle. Now, if we wanted to do something else, you know, 5.6, we go out 5.6 to the Manley down here, and then out of the Manley back in 5.6. Now, what is a patch bay, and why do I even have this? The patch bay allows me to take all my outputs of my gear and patch them into the top. It's to the back of the patch bay. So you have all your outputs up top on the patch bay. okay? And then you have all your inputs of your gear, or where it says in on the gear, you're going to make that go to the bottom of the patch bay. The reason for doing that is so if I wanted to use and patch maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of gear into one channel in Pro Tools, or like one insert, I could hardwire patch it, so I wouldn't have to add a bunch of plugins. And what I mean by that is, if I put like 7 plugs, 7 pieces of hardware on one instrumental and then the vocals, I'd start acting it. Even though I have a really nice computer, you got problems going on. You got latency issues, you got stupid stuff going on. The other thing is you know, I got the reason for having a patch bay is when you have more equipment than you have inputs and outputs, pretty much, point blank. So the reason I got this patch bay is because I have the hardware hardwired pretty much in the patch bay to act like I want it to, but sometimes a guy will come over and say, hey, I want to lay down a vocal part, and I'm like, well, the Vintech's hooked up as an insert in Pro Tools. Now I can just go Vintech out to the, you know, to the input 1 on the Symphony. So you don't have to get behind the desk and unplug crap. That's what I'm trying to say. The other cool thing is you know, I got my television hooked up over here. I was watching TV last night waiting for a song to come in. I was like, I'm just going to hook my TV up. So I hooked it right into the front of the patch bay. I didn't have to go behind there and hook up some cables. So a patch bay is a cool thing. It looks like old technology, but I don't think you can replace it with anything better unless you're going like into some superior patching bay kind of deal. Anyways, this is how this works. So I said I'm going to put the solid state channels on the beat. So here's how we do that. Solid state channels are on. What I want to do here is disable the EQ now. My solid state channels are on 7 and 8. Okay, so they're going out 7 and 8 to the input, out of the solid state channels back in 7 and 8 on the Symphony. So I'm going to show you where you go in Pro Tools so you guys can see this. I already put it on there, by the way, but I'll do it again for you. It's a learning experience. A lot of people don't know this stuff, and a lot of people don't teach you this stuff. If you like my stuff, dude, I just got sponsored by Guitar Center, so go I/O. You know where plugins are? You see where your plugins go? Just go to the I/O and then just go to Insert 7 and 8. It might be labeled different. If you're having problems with the labeling, you're going to have to go to your setup window, and I'll show you this. Where in the heck, dude? I can't. My tape, every time I got a good video going, dude, my tape starts running low. I'll get into mixing this song later. But all you got to do is just go to your window, I believe, or it's setup. Yeah, it's setup. And then just go to your I/O. Bring this over here so you can see it. But you just go to your insert. And then you can name it. You could actually name the gear. That's why that's there. So whatever you can insert in, name it there, and you know, I could say, oh, 7 and 8 is solid state. But most of the time, since I'm doing a lot of mixes, I'll open up somebody's Pro Tools session, it'll be totally different, and it's stupid for me to keep naming them. So that's just the way it is. But that's how you do that. So now over here in the box it says solid state. Pretty sweet, huh? I have just showed you how to create a hardware insert. So now when I push play, let's see how much tape. I got about 3 minutes. Do about 3 minutes of EQing. Now I'll start messing with these knobs. This is a whole different session here, teaching you how to listen to it. I hear some muddiness. Oh crap, way too much bass. What I'll do, since these aren't really a stereo pair, what I'll do is I like that for now. Way way too much bass, dude. Three-minute drill. Sounds a lot better than it did. And that's the 3-minute drill. My tape's about to run out, but this is Doug Jenkins from iMixandmaster.com. I got a lot longer to mess with it. I don't EQ and just say, look at how fast I did. I ain't freestyling on the mix. We're gonna make it the best we can. But you can tell the beat sounds dope now. And you do the same with inserts. Instead of me yelling, you do the same thing with all inserts, and now I can, that's on the beat. I can run this Vintech and bust it off and run it mono on the Vintech as a mono pre. I can run it through the back CQ. I can run both and or all the buses through the back CQ. You really got to learn signal flow and signal routing in Pro Tools, and you'll start making better mixes. Absolutely. And then you got to learn how to EQ stuff and compress it. It is a job. But I'm telling you right now, keep with it. If you're a mixing engineer, if you're an artist, send your music. I mean, you don't have to send it to me, but really, until you get a professional mix, you don't even know what it's all about. It does make that much of a difference.